Oh, what's up, everybody? It's me, Chris. Here to quick drop off my quick Strikeforce predictions for this weekend. This is going to be Strikeforce's first card since acquiring Pro Elite's assets and their fighters and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to it. A lot of people, there's a lot of MMA fans out there that kind of disparage other organizations. They want to see them fail. They're only like fans of the UFC. I don't understand why that is. You know what I'm saying? Competition is good in any business, and the more fights we get to see regardless of organizations, the better. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that Strikeforce is very successful with this. And plus, I am a subscriber to Showtime for the boxing initially, but I'm glad they're supporting the MMA as well. You know what I'm saying? Definitely, good for my cable bill. What I put out for. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting boxing and MMA. Anyways, real quick, in regards to the card, Brett Rogers is fighting Ron Humphries. I believe he goes by the name Obongo something. He was a contestant. He was on that BET reality show Iron Ring. I think this pretty much is a setup fight for Brett Rogers to look good. I think they're still trying to they're going to try to reset up the fight later this year, or set up the fight with him and Kimbo Slice still. So this pretty much should be an easy win for Brett Rogers in my opinion. Also, Christiane Cyborg's on the card. She's got an opponent. I don't even recall the name, to be honest. This is similar to the Rogers fight. They're just trying to get her an easy, showcase fight. And they're going to try to match her up with Gina Carano later on this year, that big showdown everyone's looking forward to. Another fight that was scheduled for this card, Josh Thompson was supposed to defend his Strikeforce lightweight title against Gilbert Melendez in a rematch. Unfortunately, Josh broke his ankle in training, so the fight's got to be rescheduled. The interesting thing about that, I actually had a radio or a telephone interview scheduled with Josh Thompson last week, and unfortunately, he broke his ankle the same day, so I wasn't able to, obviously I don't think he wanted to talk that day, and I couldn't blame him, but, hopefully I'll be able to catch up with him before the rematch happens. Anyways, on to the two fights I'm going to make predictions on. First, I've got Scott Hansdale Smith against Benji Razor Raddick. Scott's coming off the first round KO win over Terry Martin. Before that, he had the TKO loss to Robbie Lawler in the rematch of their first title fight. Benji Raddick's coming off the TKO win over Murillo Ninja Hua. The Scott Smith-Lawler fight, second one in the Ninja Hua Raddick fight, were on the same card. So if you saw that event, which was on CBS, then you got to see both those fights. Both these guys have the same kind of style. Both pretty much just like to stand, throw bombs, trade. Neither of them have a really good ground game. I think Benji has a little bit better jiu-jitsu, a little bit better wrestling. But, he's a guy that likes to stand and trade for the most part. Which is good for Scott because Scott doesn't really have the best ground game and he doesn't have the best wrestling. He doesn't have the best takedown defense. But fortunately, I don't think Benji's going to want to take it there unless he gets hurt. Being as they both like to stand and trade, and that's where I see the fight going, I'm going to go with Scott Smith. Reason being, Benji got knocked out not too long ago by Matt Horwich. And Horwich is a pretty good fighter, but he doesn't have the most power. Definitely doesn't have as much power as Scott Smith does. Scott Smith's blown out guys before with just one shot. He's got a lot of power in his hands. So, and he's been stunned before, but I've never really seen him knocked out or TKO'd. Even though he did get hit, battered around pretty good by Robbie Lawler. But mostly it was the body shots that did the damage that stopped those fights. So I'm going to go with Scott Smith by TKO in what should be a really exciting fight while it lasts. On to the main event, we got Frank Shamrock against Nick Diaz. Really looking forward to this fight. First thing of note, it's catchweight. It's at 179 pounds. Frank normally fights at middleweight, which is 185. Nick's fought at 170, and he's also fought at 160 recently. Frank's coming off the TKO loss to Kung Lee. Really exciting fight. It was a really good fight last year. It was for the Strikeforce middleweight title, I believe. Kung Lee was getting the better of that fight, throwing a lot of leg kicks throwing a lot of high kicks that Frank was blocking with his arms. My bad. And unfortunately, that accumulation of blocking those kicks ended up breaking Frank Shamrock's arm, and he had to retire, or the doctor stopped the fight. But before that, he had a win over Phil Baroni, and before that, he had the loss to Renzo Gracie. Nick Diaz is coming off the win over Thomas Danny on the card was on CBS. Really impressive, looked really good there, but Thomas Danny isn't the toughest opponent. Before that, he had wins over Mushin Corbry, and he had a win over in Japan. His last loss was KJ Noons, which was for the Elite XC lightweight title, I believe. Fight was stopped on cuts. He got cut up real bad above the eyes. KJ was getting better from on the feet in that fight, to be honest. Since then, because he's had a lot of scar tissue from a lot of cuts and whatnot, Nick's had, scar tissue removed, through plastic surgery and whatnot, so hopefully cuts won't be a problem for him in this fight. A couple other things to note. Frank Shamrock's 36 years old, whereas Nick Diaz is only 25. Another thing, Frank Shamrock had a win a couple years ago against Cesar Gracie. Those guys have been talking trash back and forth for a long time. Finally fought. Frank knocked him out really quick with one punch. The reason that's of note is because Cesar Gracie is Nick Diaz's longtime trainer and mentor. So I would, definitely think that Nick Diaz would want to get a measure of revenge for his trainer in this fight. On to the fight itself. How do I see it going? Or the breakdown. Both guys aren't afraid to stand and trade, and both guys, aren't afraid to go to the ground either. In regards to the stand-up, I think Frank's got more power. I thought Frank was the naturally bigger guy, but last week when I asked Nick Diaz about this, he pretty much stated that he thinks he's the bigger fighter. He said he normally walks around, he would probably be around 200 pounds if he didn't work his butt off, to get down to 170, 160. And he said, whereas Frank's kind of a guy that has to lift weights and whatnot to get up to the weight that he's at. So, I don't really know who is the bigger guy in this case, but I do think Frank Shamrock's a stronger fighter. I think he's a little more powerful with his kicks and with his punches. Nick's got some crazy technique. He doesn't really sit down on his punches. He more so throws a lot of pitter-pat punches and whatnot, kind of disrupt his fighter's rhythm. Kind of cuts up guys or breaks them down after a while, but doesn't really have a lot of power in his shots. But does mix in some nice body punches here and there. Nick Diaz doesn't really throw a lot of kicks, so that shouldn't be a problem for Frank. Frank's had issues, not too long ago in the Brony fight with the ACL and whatnot, but that shouldn't be a problem because Nick doesn't throw a lot of leg kicks or anything of that sort. I think on the ground, Nick Diaz is he's got the better jiu-jitsu game by far, I believe. Well, not by far, but he's got the better jiu-jitsu game. I think Frank's got the better wrestling. The thing is, I think Nick might want to be on top on the ground, but he doesn't really have good takedowns. Doesn't really have good technique, being Nick, that is. And, I think Frank should be able to stifle any takedowns Nick goes for. I think Frank should be able to get pretty much, takedowns if he wants to against Nick. But I don't know how successful he'll be on the ground. Nick's got really good jiu-jitsu, got a really good guard. But Frank should be able to get some good ground and pound, here and there if he tries. Nick's definitely going to throw a lot of submission attempts at him if he does end up on his back. But, Frank's very competent on the ground. I don't really see him getting caught in any submissions, although it could happen. Overall, I think Frank's going to get this fight by decision, mainly because I think he's got a little bit more overall better standing with the strikes and punches mixing him in. I think his shots may have a little bit more on them, and I think he'll be able to get Nick down, like I said. And even if he's not having a lot of success on top, judges seem to lean towards a guy that gets takedowns and is on top, whether he's being very successful or not with the ground and pound. That's just the way judges seem to lean. Even if they're not having better success than the guy on the ground, the guy on the bottom with submission attempts or whatnot. So I see Frank taking a decision. I do think this fight will make it all the way to the decision. I think it'll go 3 rounds. Should be a really exciting fight, very entertaining. Both guys always bring it, always provide good lead ups to the fight with the trash talk and whatnot, and always put on entertaining fights when they're in there. So I'm looking forward to this fight, and hopefully it'll turn out really good. Real quick, Strikeforce already announced their next date, June 6th at Scott's Trade Center in St. Louis. Main event's Robbie Lawler's going to be fighting Jake Shields at a catch weight of 182 pounds. Should be a really good fight, matchup of different styles. Got the ground guy against the stand-up guy. Looking forward to that event as well. Also on that card, you got Renato Babalu Sobral defending the Strikeforce light heavyweight title against Rafael Feijão. You got the veteran champion against the up-and-comer and Feijão. Should be a really exciting fight. I'm looking forward to that event as well. I might be back on Sunday to give my afterthoughts on this event, though. Not sure, it's Easter, so I'm going to be busy, but hopefully I'll be able to squeeze in a video. If not, though, I'll see you guys next time. But until then, I'm out of here. Bye.